on time. Do you see now, Amy?
We are talking 10 Minutes to Midnight. This one is directed and co-written by Eric Bloomquist and stars Caroline Williams, who you may know from Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. So this is a weird, surreal vampire film, and it focuses on this kind of radio station and it's kind of like its small studio. Now, we have seen some kind of horror films in this kind of setting, Pontypool, things like that. And this one is kind of just a surreal, bizarre movie. In you know, it's got vampire trappings, but it's just a complete kind of like weird film. So we have this character played by Caroline Williams, Amy, who is a mature radio host who's been kind of doing this kind of show called 10 Minutes to Midnight for the last 30 years or so. And she's kind of getting let go to be replaced by a younger lady, shall we say. Anyway, she comes into work one night, but she's been bitten by a bat, and she has like this wound on her neck. And she ends up kind of getting into this kind of other female kind of replacement and ends up biting her. And then the strange kind of stuff starts to happen as both these women seem to go through some type of changes. However, the rest of the movie is really just a kind of bizarre mishmash of like hallucinogenic kind of dreams and maybe alternate looks on what's kind of going on and things like this. And the story is just a series of kind of like weird images, weird surreal images and kind of sequences that doesn't really make any kind of sense. I think the movie's trying to have like, a kind of a metaphor for change, I think is what it's kind of going for. But it's just a bizarre kind of trippy film at the end of the day. So let's talk about what works in this movie. I actually think our lead here, Caroline Williams, actually does a pretty good job as making a kind of the most grounded out of the characters here and the likeable kind of protagonist. And I like her sassiness that she brings to the character, but also, you know, a sense that she's kind of getting betrayed and disappointment with kind of her lot in life. So I actually kind of quite liked her character. I will say as well, the movie's certainly original, and you know, story-wise, it can't really be compared to anything else because it is such a weird and bizarre story. But that is going to be coming up again in just a minute. But, you know, I can't take it away from the fact that it is certainly a kind of an original twist on a vampire kind of story. Because it has a relatively kind of small cast, I think we do get to know the characters fairly well. And I kind of quite like the relationship between her and the kind of like her tech guy, who is this younger guy who's kind of in the kind of the office sort of thing, who does all the kind of sound mixing and all that kind of stuff. The effects are a bit of a mixed bag. Some are quite good. There is some fairly good practical effects, but it's enhanced with some quite ropey CGI sequences as well that are meant to kind of like, you know, enhance the effects, but I think ends up detracting from it, which kind of leads me into obviously what maybe doesn't work, and that is one of the things I think. You know, I've seen praise for the effects here, but I think some of the digital effects are quite weak, to be honest. To be frank though, the biggest thing I can say is this story just is complete nonsense. It feels super self-indulgent. Let's make a cool, like, trippy art house kind of horror movie that people aren't going to understand, and because they don't understand, they're going to say, oh yeah, I really liked it, because they're going to pretend that you understand it. And it's just like, it seems super self-indulgent, and I understand that this movie is meant to be having parallels between, you know, is this woman kind of going crazy because she's kind of like succumbing to rabies or something, or is this kind of like a metaphor for changes within our lives and stuff like that? Great. But as a movie, the narrative is just like, it's like literally like throwing a pizza against the wall and going, oh yeah, some of that we can still eat. It's just all over the place, and unfortunately, because it's so, you know, so bizarre, it's really hard to kind of get invested in where the story is kind of going. there are sequences that are interesting, but there are sequences that are just downright weird and bizarre and don't really kind of, well, they make no sense by design. Again, some of the characters are kind of, for what I think is a relatively grounded lead performance. Some of the other characters are a little bit over the top. In particular, the kind of the security guy who just seems to be in a different movie, and kind of her boss as well. They seem very much like caricatures, whilst her, the other woman, and this kind of like this tech guy all seem to be taking it a little bit more seriously. Things like this. I honestly, to be honest with you, as much as this might be a trippy, bizarre film, and you kind of, if you want to, you know, do things whilst watching this, I'm sure it'd be a real trip for you. But I've got to be honest with you, as a narrative piece of entertainment, I found this weak and very, very self-indulgent. This is obviously the film that the filmmakers want to make, but I don't think it's a film that other people will want to watch. Now, I had a look at some reviews because I was curious to what other people would say. And it's just like, if you look at the IMDb user ratings, it's 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I thought, really? It's one of those films with lots of 10 out of 10s, is it? I see. You know, I'm not going to say what I think is going on there, but I think it's relatively obvious. I actually think this has some good elements in it, and I'll give it props for being original, but my God, it's not an entertaining movie. It's not an interesting movie. It has an interesting character in it. I'll say that. 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.